This morning when I made my oatmeal, I put on my story, you'll see that I use New Zest powder in my oatmeal to give it that chocolatey taste. And I use a chocolate one. And I've been speaking about it for quite a while on the show. So if you did try New Zest, I want you to reach out and let me know how it's been helping you. If you notice that you've had more energy or you've been more satiated throughout the day, it's really one of the best proteins out there. I give it to all of my clients who ask me what is the top of the top. And this is one of my favorite. Nuzest, Nuzest, is a plant protein and it's made from premium European golden peas. And it's one of the best tasting proteins you're gonna find out there. They're grown in northern France, processed in Belgium, and they're utilizing a water-based technology. And the end product, which you get, is the clean, lean protein, which you see on my stories. And it is the benchmark for the clean label free form of supplements, which for me is very, 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 very important. And you know, when I did my research into plant proteins, Nuzest was one of the most transparent. They provided documents for their whole line, every single flavor. And it came out to be one of the best, which is why if you go back to my protein show, you'll hear that. Another reason why I love it is because it has a 98% digestible rating. And that's maintaining the smooth texture and that pleasant taste that you're getting. So if you have gut issues, gut inflammation, and you're recommended a protein powder, this is gonna be one of the best ones, especially if you're health conscious on top of that. And you're crazy about chemicals and pesticides like me, you know Nuzest is gonna be one of the best ones out. So Heal Thyself listeners who purchase Nuzest, via the link in the description, I'm going to get 20% off of the first purchase. And this excludes sale items, bundles, subscriptions, and gift cards. And the link is nuzest.us/heal thyself, HEALTHYSELF. Hey everyone, welcome to Heal Thyself, another episode, another week of show. And I'm really excited because you know, I talk about environmental medicine, but I really dedicated today's episode into basic interventions. This is what I want. I want people to be able to access things for the cheapest. And I put together basic interventions for everyone to optimize the air quality in their home. And it's going to be really nice because we can start doing it tomorrow. So in our guest segment, we are talking to the founders of NED. Super important conversation because what I want everyone to understand is if you are using a hemp-based CBD product, it's not all created equal. It's actually one of the most tainted industries in the health field. So what I want to do is really get some clarity for everyone to know how do we find a good quality product. So it's going to be amazing. They're really down to earth guys and super just wanting to do better in the world. So this is the type of people we bring in, right? But I'm really excited to go into the air quality part. So let's get to this knowledge bomb. All right, I want to talk about air quality. I've done a lot of topics on the show. And you know, what I notice is I pick so many of them that are relevant into my life. And as I move to a new place, one of the first things I thought about is how can I optimize air quality? Now, a lot of us think that the outdoor air is more polluted than the indoor air. But as per the EPA, not only are we indoors more, we spend about 90% of our time indoors, 90, which is a whole nother show, a whole nother conversation when it comes to how aligned we are with nature. But we are inundated with pollutants versus outdoor, 2 to 5 times on average higher. But if you're cleaning with the windows closed or you have a ton of furniture that's off-gassing or one reason or another, it can go up to 100 times more toxic in concentration of pollutants than outdoors. So in the EPA website, if you go, you'll read a little bit. And one of the first things you'll see is it talks about indoor concentrations of some pollutants having increased over the recent decades. Why? Well, there's different factors, but one major one is the energy efficient building construction, right? It has poor mechanical ventilation and it's not ensuring adequate air exchange. That's one, because a lot of these new constructions are becoming energy efficient. And they're also, the advent of an increase in synthetic building materials, furnishings, and then we have the personal care products or the things like the home cleaners that we bring to the home, pesticides. I want you to think about the air in your home as a bucket. And as that bucket starts filling up with all these things like off-gassing from furnishings in the home, we talked about energy efficient building constructions, pesticides, as it starts building up, then the air quality reaches a point where it's going to get you sick, right? And it doesn't have to be fast, but sometimes it is. Some people suffer sinus issues, asthma, respiratory issues, especially kids, the most sensitive, pregnant women, animals, your pets. These are all sort of canaries in the coal mine to understand that if as soon as they start showing symptoms and their doctor can't get to the bottom of it, we really have to think about the air quality. And remember, the home is a living system. It's got a play of bacteria, mold, viruses, chemicals, wind, airflow. It's a living, breathing system, and it's our responsibility to optimize that system's health. So today, I'm going to give you some tips on how to optimize the air quality in your home. So for starters, look no further than the cleaning supplies you are using. Bleach is one of the most toxic cleaning supplies of all. I talked about what it does in the body. It's irritating, it's corrosive, it affects your mucosal tissues, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the respiratory system. If you have a child or family member who's already had asthma, you never really want to use bleach, right? Because it can exacerbate it. But you may have not known that according to the Association of Occupational and Environmental Clinics, AOEC, they classify bleach as an asthmagen. So not only does it exacerbate it, but it causes asthma. So if you're going to your allergist or your pulmonologist and your doctor can't figure out why, and they say that your child's allergic to dander or oak tree or spruce, that might not be the cause. The real cause might have been the usage or overusage of bleach. And it's a significant amount of toxins that are released in the home. If you use bleach outside, the chemical levels will be about 10 to 100 parts per trillion. But if you use it indoors, it's going to be at 100 parts per billion or higher. And it's significant because 1 part per billion equals 1,000 parts per trillion. So if you ever use bleach in the home and you really need to use it, aside from, and you heard this and you go, okay, I hear that, but sometimes I need to use it, then you got to open the windows. It's an oxidant. As I mentioned, it's corrosive to the mucosa. It exacerbates asthma. It causes asthma. And you never want to use it with lemon-based cleaners. This is one really quick way, if you are using bleach in the home, to stop using it. And already the air quality is going to be much, much better. So you may be asking, what are some of the better options out there? Castile soap, very versatile, can be used as all-purpose. Cleaning vinegar, more concentrated than just plain old vinegar. Baking soda, borax are good for mold and mildew. Hydrogen peroxide for the grime. You can use thyme oil as a disinfectant. And as always, you can check the Environmental Working Group, their Clean Living database, and you can cross-reference what you've been using, and you may be shocked at the grade that it gets. But you also we'll be happy to see that there's many other recommendations that they make that are much better quality ones. I have no affiliation with Branch Basics or Puracy, but they're really good ones if you don't make an at-home one. You always want to check if the cleaning agent is indicated for the surface you're using, right? Because let's say marble can be affected by the certain at-home cleaning agent. So make sure you're cross-referencing if it's safe to use, because you don't want a marble top that is not ever going to be the same. So that's just a little heads up. But really, one of the first dents you can make in your air quality is switching those cleaning supplies. Airflow, it's the second one. If you have windows, a good amount of windows, for me, if I'm looking for an apartment or in the future when I buy a house, it's got to have a lot of sun and a lot of windows. The current one that I'm living in has both. And every single morning I wake up, I open every single window in the house, top to bottom, to provide that airflow. And you can feel it actually. Go around your home today, even as you're listening to this, walk around, go to each room and feel where the air is the dustiest or the heaviest or the warmest or the muskiest. That's where you want airflow happening, particularly because that's the breeding ground for things like mold, mildew, dust, bacteria. So yeah, do that test, go around your home. You can feel it, right? Where does it feel the freshest? Start opening your windows. It was crazy. I knew this one person who said that their parents for years haven't, and they live in Minnesota, for years haven't opened their windows. And I'm like, how is that possible? And they have all this carpeting and all this, these toxic couches. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, but easy fix. And then if you're cleaning at home, definitely do that. Another thing that a lot of us don't think about, we equate the smell of clean with the smell of chemicals. And that's not true. The smell of clean should be neutral. But the nice thing is that there's these natural scents that are much better for not only your respiratory system, but your body as a whole. These plugins, which I did a review on, are horrible. A lot of us, sometimes I would come home and my dad would have these plugins and I would always unplug them. But not only are they really bad for your respiratory system, they're bad for kids, they're bad for animals in the house. But now we know that these plugins release something called phthalates, which are endocrine disruptors. So you could be actively, unintentionally, but actively disrupting your hormonal system because of these plugins. So if you have the plugins, remove them. Think about even getting an essential oil diffuser. Make sure you're using the oils that are indicated for the diffuser. I know that I believe it's Grow fragrance. You can spray it around the house and they're essential oil based, much, much cleaner. If you have those plugins, take them out and throw them in the garbage. Cooking, a lot of us don't think about combustible toxins in the home, but it's really important to think about what is the air quality, or how are the windows open, or do we have the overhead fan on when we're cooking? And smoking is another one. It's a combustion process which releases byproducts into the air, like particulates that can inflame your respiratory system, but also things like carbon monoxide. So, and we don't think that, right? We're just cooking a meal. So things like also fireplaces, coal burning appliances, we really want to make sure that not only are we opening the windows, we have the vent, we have the fan on, and then if we have an air filter, which I'll talk a little bit about later, but air filters are going to be so important. And I have an air doctor, I have a few filters, but the air doctor is the one near my kitchen. When I cook, especially my old place, which was much smaller, I would cook and it indicates how toxic the air is basically. And every time I'm cooking, it always sensed it and it would turn red and the fan would go on high mode, basically the boost mode, the strong mode, to really start cleaning out the air. So think about that and make sure you're protecting yourself, especially if you're cooking all the time and throughout the day, all your meals, or if you're in the kitchen doing a Sunday dinner or Sunday lunch and you're really spending a lot of time, think about the airflow when you're cooking. A lot of us don't. And I will say a little aside for the cooking aspect, make sure you're using a really high quality pan, because the Teflon or the nonstick ones have these polyfluorinated chemicals which can make you sick. Those fumes, if breathed in by your house bird, it will die. So if you're dead set on using Teflon, I wouldn't know why, and you have a house bird, make sure you keep it away from the Teflon. But I did a show on higher quality ones. You want to look for stainless steel, cast iron ones, or high quality ceramic ones. So when it comes to air filters, one of my first show was on air filters. This year, I will be putting together the top 2020 air filters. You want to get a really high quality HEPA filter from the get-go. And it depends on the size of your place. Usually a good quality HEPA filter will get about 500 to 1,000 square feet. But if you have a bigger home, you want to make sure you keep it in the rooms that you're going to be in especially, but you may need another one. But air filters are a really, really nice way to clean the air. But remember, if you don't remove the cause, then the air filter is just doing superficial work for you. Next to airflow, next to the natural light, we want to consider mold. And I won't go too much into it because just last week, Brian Carr came on and he really just laid down so many gems when it came to mold. But you got to listen that basically the EPA believes that 45 to 50% of homes have mold. Brian Carr was talking about more like 80 and 90% have water damage. And if you have water damage, you most likely have mold. So, and it's the culprit, right? It's not the mold, it's the water damage that's causing it, that it's creating those spores to be released. And you want to look under your sinks, in your bathroom, ceiling, walls. Check out We Inspect. The website is a resource. They'll tell you what to look for. And keeping your home clean is really important. Why? Because the dust. These mycotoxins build up in the dust, and it can particularly be an issue. So you always want to make sure that you're at least dusting the home, sweeping the home as much as possible. You can do the at-home ERMI test, and it'll tell you if you have high levels of mold. And then you can go and get yourself an expert to check. But if someone in your home is chronically sick, someone in your family is chronically sick, a loved one is chronically sick, and no one can get to the bottom of it, you have to check for that mold and air quality. Home materials, couches, rugs, beds, it's something we don't necessarily think about, but it's really, really important. If you're like me, a few years ago, I said, oh, it doesn't smell like chemicals anymore. It must have been fine. But off-gassing not only happens when you open up the package, it really happens through the life of the materials. You get chemicals like formaldehyde, benzene, toluene, phthalates, flame retardants. These things inflame the respiratory system, disrupt your hormones, disrupt your immune system. They're connected to cancer. So it behooves us to start thinking about, it doesn't have to be overnight, but how we can start changing the materials in our home so we can optimize the air quality. But if you're on your bed for most of your life, you have to think about how those chemicals that are off-gassing for the life of the bed are going to be affecting you. For one person and their constitution, it may be hormonal disruption and acne. For another person and their constitution, it may be respiratory issues and asthma. But regardless, we want to make these interventions in the home and start removing the stuff that could be getting us sick, particularly if you're sensitive. I also want you to think about things like rugs. Carpet is a major cause of so many of these chemicals being released, and it also builds up a lot of these toxins. But also, it's vulnerable to chemicals being tracked in by kids and dogs and adults alike. So, really easy thing. Take off your shoes. Your mom and your grandma were right. If you have pets, make sure you clean their feet before they come on the rug, and make sure you're always vacuuming and cleaning that rug. So according to the Chemical Society, rooms with carpeted floors, when compared to bare floors, generally had higher levels of pesticides. In homes with bare floors, the entryways, the highest levels of herbicides were found in carpeted living rooms and bedrooms. In homes with carpeted entryways, the levels were higher there than any parts of the house. So you see how carpet plays an important role in the home. If you have carpet, you want to make sure you're more intentional, especially with this information. And the last intervention is radon, something that we don't talk about enough in the health industry, but radon is a known human carcinogen. It is the second leading cause of lung cancer. The crazy thing is it has no smell. It's a natural gas that's coming out of Earth. And it typically moves up through the ground to the air above and into your home through the cracks and other holes in the foundation. Radon can enter your home through well water as well, and your home can trap radon. So it's very important to check for this. See if your home was ever checked for it, and if it hasn't been, or it was more than 2 years ago, make sure you check for it yourself, because the EPA does recommend you test every 2 years. Really, 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 really important. Remember, the second leading cause of cancer behind smoking. So check your home for radon. And these are the easy ways to optimize the air quality in your home, to lay the foundation for better quality health for you and your family. All right, there you go. I can't wait to get the founders of NED. This is, for me, what I found, the best quality hemp CBD company out there. But we're going to talk about the ethos of the company, what they want to do in the world. But really, really, my favorite part is going to be talking about how not all hemp is created equal, not all CBD is created equal, and how a lot of these companies out there are just cutting corners and putting a lot of crap out there. And of course, you know I love talking about that stuff. So let's get to this interview. All right, everyone. Finally, we get to this guest segment. I've been waiting for this. We're going to talk to the founders of NED. It's a wellness company, and I use their CBD hemp every single night. We're going to talk about what that did to me. I feel so good, by the way. I'm sleeping very well. And their new magnesium. But really, we want to get into what the health and wellness field looks like to them, and what CBD and hemp field looks like. Because there's a lot of crappy products out there when you research. When you look at the consumer reports, you investigate yourself, and really just what it looks like. So welcome to the show, both of you. I'm so happy to have you both.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Very nice to be here.
Okay, so where are you guys? So you're both in different parts. Where are you guys calling from?
We're actually both here in Boulder, Colorado, which is our hometown and where Ned's located.
Awesome. So at what point in your lives did you go, I want to start a wellness company and I want to really get into the CBD world? And how did you guys, were you guys friends from high school? Did you guys just like connect? I want to know this. What is the serendipity that happened to have this awesome company out here?
Yeah. Well, it was actually, for me, it was about 2016. It was the fall of 2016. I had spent 45 days entirely outdoors, and I mean entirely. I think I might have gone inside for the total of maybe an hour or so over that 45 days. And I was outdoors, camping, sleeping outdoors, working outdoors. And it was really an experiment for me of what would happen when I spent that much time in nature. And, Dr. G, I heard your knowledge bomb on forest bathing. And that's near and dear to my heart. That's the kind of research that I've been doing for over 16 years now. And that was one of my favorite experiments in 2016. What would happen when I put myself outdoors, when I was forest bathing for literally 45 days? And it was at the end of that I was really able to identify my purpose in life, which is to help people find that same connection with nature and help them reconnect with nature. And it was not long after that the idea, the desire, and that purpose aligned to really create that desire to create a wellness company. I had thought about different areas of doing it. getting people on retreats, consulting with different businesses, but really a wellness company that would help people find that deeper connection to the natural world. That for me was when it began. Adrian's got a totally different story, which brings a lot to the table as well.
Yeah, well, I can cover that quickly. And it was roughly the same time, just a different path. And, um, I was in New York City for about a decade. And 2015 rolled around, and I'd been there for as long as I had and checked off a lot of boxes I'd set out to check off in my 20s. And sure enough, I found myself sitting there. I was 32 at the time and just had all these things I thought I wanted and was living the life I thought I wanted, and just came out the back end of it with a sense of emptiness and almost like this burgeoning despair. And didn't really know how to deal with it. I didn't really have the tools to deal with it. And I ended up moving out to the UK thinking that a change of scenery would just fix it all. And it worked for about a month. And then I just started waking up with that same feeling of like, man, my life is not my own and time is just slipping away. And it all just kind of erupted about 6 months into that gig in the UK. And just happened really unexpectedly. One day I was presenting in front of my company during a quarterly review and just halfway through had just a full-on panic attack and just kind
Mm.
of broke in that moment. And a couple of days later broke out in shingles and just found myself at this like really scary crossroads where it was like, oh, and I got fired, by the way, from
Mm.
that gig after that moment. And yeah, so I was at this crossroads where I, could kind of either just take some Xanax and keep going, or I could really just take a step back and reevaluate and try to get some light on what had happened. And I was very fortunate I was able to take the latter path and, just took off. And I took off for what I thought would be a couple months, and then it turned into 2 years of just kind of wandering and discovering and similar to Rhett, reconnecting with the natural world, really exploring the power of simplicity and how minimizing our stuff and the way we live could really nurture the soul, as does like really simple tasks. And then probably the most important part was, just the notion of deeper human connection, which for me really started with a better sense of self-honesty, which led to more honesty with others. And then all of a sudden there's just a much greater connection. And that's when, when I was kind of on that journey that Rhett and I were spending, we were trading emails. Anytime I'd pop back into the US, we would link up, and we had been friends back in New York. That was how
Mm.
we originally knew each other. And as I was journaling and blogging about my time away, Rhett really took an interest. And, so it was quite some time that we were talking about, we should probably do something together. And then it wasn't until 2017 that Rhett really took it upon himself to go explore and meet farmers. And it was this really kind of serendipitous connection that he made that really planted the seed, no pun intended, for Ned.
I love that. Yeah, and serendipitous is the word, right? Like it's interesting because Red, it seems like nature gave you so many of the answers through quieting the mind. Adrian, you needed something like an anxiety attack to show you like you're not in alignment. And either way, whatever, it's just such a cool illustration of two different roads leading to the same path. And it's like this is how it's manifesting in the world. Adrian, you mentioned something about simplicity. What are some of the things that you learned? Like what are some simple tasks that you added into your life that really helped?
Well, at the time, I mean, it was, I was living out of a backpack. It didn't get more simple than that. I had about a dozen possessions at any given time. It was like some clothes and my camera. and that was the extent of it. So there was such a beauty in that. It just like I didn't have a home, you know, I had some stuff in a storage locker, and that just like I didn't feel very weighted down
Mm.
anymore. Whereas in New York City, I just had so much stuff in this big apartment. Um, but you know, I found really simple tasks like you know, Brett and I always talk about chopping wood. You know, chopping wood was one of those things that when I lived in New York City, like that is the last thing I would do. But
Mhm.
when I was out traveling, like all of a sudden you know, I was making fires and would just like learn how to chop wood and just this like
Mm.
amazing simplicity of, you know, just doing such a you know, well, it's a task that's just so integral to our human ancestry. And
Mhm.
building a fire would be another one. But as far as today goes, you know, simple things can be just sitting outside and getting some sun on my face for 10 minutes. It's, you know, just going for a walk around the block after work just to have that like little transition ritual before I go from work space to home space.
Mhm.
And that's what I really love is like so many of these things are just they're so attainable. They're right outside. They're in your breath. You know, there's just it's all accessible and it's all doable. And I think so often when we think about wellness and mental health, it always looks like this big, you know, daunting task or target or destination where at the end of the day, it's so oftentimes just it's right there for you. And it's the little
Yeah.
things that add up more than it is some big singular thing.
Yeah. And that's why I always push for just rituals, cheap interventions, simple lifestyle stuff, going out and seeing the sun, seeing the sunrise, seeing the sunset, breathing in nature, forest bathing, as I know, Rhett, you love. These are things that I mean, the reconnecting back to nature is something that I've been pushing for so long because there's so much fancy stuff out there. You know, I own a supplement platform and I still don't push supplements as the number one thing. You can't take supplements and without doing these things. So you guys tie that in with the culture of Ned, which is incredible. So we partner with Purity Coffee for a reason. A lot of people love coffee. I particularly don't drink it, but when I do recommend it, this is the one I recommend. Now, long time ago, I did a really in-depth post and podcast on coffee, and I spoke about what the benefits of coffee are. Now, a lot of those benefits are negated by conventional coffees because they have mold, mycotoxins, pesticides, herbicides, and they're just not high quality. So, if you do drink coffee, especially if it's every day, you need to get the best of the best to do right by your body. So, one of my close friends who's been on the show drinks this every single day. And she said that compared to the other coffees that she was drinking, Purity coffee tastes the best and she enjoys the benefits of it. And it's not giving you the jitters that caffeine may, especially if you're sensitive to it. But Purity coffee is a specialty grade organic coffee. It's mold free, mycotoxin free, pesticide free. Remember, I was talking about the conventional ones out there, and it provides a high standard of health benefits that most other companies are looking to achieve when it comes to coffee. And there is many health benefits to coffee. You just got to get a really good quality one. When it comes to Purity coffee, it's designed to retain antioxidants in the coffee, which is the therapeutic constituent when it comes to the benefits that we see in coffee. But it's minimizing the unhealthy compounds that can develop when the food is subject to high temperatures, like coffee roasting. So, in addition to the health benefits, the feedback on the taste of Purity coffee is that it tastes delicious and it always tastes fresh, as my friend said too. So, drinking healthier coffee is one of the easiest things you can do to boost your overall wellness and longevity. So, I want you to go to puritycoffee.com and you're going to get free shipping on orders that are over $50. Rhett, when you were out in nature, did you find, and this is what I found, the more you forest bathe, the more you're out in nature, or just the more you're at peace and quieting the mind, every answer is just coming up. You're like, oh, damn, why? If I stop thinking, there's the answer. Did you find yourself being inspired by like deep soul stuff coming up?
Oh yeah, I mean by everything, right? So, like I mentioned, I've been experimenting and really studying what it is about nature that makes us all feel better, more happy, more healthy, more creative, more focused. And that really started for me back in 2007 when I was living in New York City. Um, and I was going, It's funny. I was born in a town with 11 people in Wyoming, mountain town. I was the 12th person, and but then ended up living and growing up and living and working in some of the biggest cities in the world, from Sao Paulo to New York, Miami, Jeddah, Riyadh, Boston. And in each of those cities, I always sought out the most natural places, whether that was Central Park, Abita Puerto Park, or like an abandoned lot in Boston. Wherever nature was taking place, I just always felt so much better being there. And then it was 2008 actually. I'm in New York. I kind of started this kooky group in Central Park where we're running around with no shoes on. We're climbing trees and like lifting rocks and logs, and it was a meetup group. And then the New York Journal, or the Wall Street Journal, did an article on me and this crazy workout, and it just exploded. It became the number one
Wow.
meetup in New York City for a couple months,
Wow.
and it was awesome. It was like total cross section of New Yorkers, everyone from hedge fund managers to bus drivers, the super fit to the super unfit, and just a really special time in my life. And it was at that time, and I became friends with a lot of those people. I mean, there were literally thousands of people that came through, and I was doing it all for free just because it was fun and enjoyable, and I was meeting wonderful people and reconnecting with nature. And and it was at that time that I started realizing that there's a body of research out there that's, no longer just is it poets and philosophers talking about the virtues of nature and, the path less traveled. But now we can actually see into the body what it is that happens in our neurotransmitters, our hormones, all our biomarkers when we spend time in nature, or even just have a plant on our desk, or look
Hmm.
at a picture of a beach. Um, these are to me, this represents the absolute most exciting and potentially the biggest opportunity of our lifetimes to reconnect with nature and find a deeper connection, a deeper meaning. And so, yeah, when I, decided, it's funny, Adrian mentioned he didn't have a home, the time, like the best time of his life, the most, spiritual, introspective, and formative time in his life. He didn't have a home. Well, that 45 days, I actually didn't either. And my lease ran up June 1st. My wife and daughter went to the Netherlands, where my wife's from, for 2 months. And I was like, why would I start a lease now? I'll just wait until August when they come back. And so I sold my BMW. I bought a Forerunner, threw my tent, sleeping bag, fly rod, and hiking boots in there. And I was gone for the majority of that 2 months. And yeah, I mean, within a couple days, I was feeling like I was thriving. Things were sharper, decisions were easier to make. I was more
Hmm.
creative, more focused. You know, I was getting more work done in less time, and it felt better. And
Hmm.
it was at the end of that time that I really realized I wanted to share this with people. I wanted everybody to know about it, and not only for them, but honestly for the planet. I saw
Yeah.
so many people voting the wrong way when it comes to environmental issues because they have no context for the value that nature, the environment, can bring to us. And so when we find that deeper connection, we also make different choices when it comes to those that represent us and the bills that get passed. And so really it has a tremendously important meaning, this deeper connection to the natural world.
Mm. I feel that. I feel that myself because I was living in the mountains as of like 2 weeks ago, and it was the most spiritually defining part of my life. It just showed nature has a really interesting way of showing you if you spend enough time there, and you get to see like,
Mm.
well, damn, that was my ego, and I'm really holding. Oh, there's another anchor that's really holding me back from greatness, and but it's like subtle but powerful, and so I get both of you guys' experiences because I just had it all of last year, and it's interesting that three guys are talking who have such a reverence for nature now. And it's interesting, right? You say that grew to be one of the biggest meetup communities because think about it. We're biologically programmed to be out in nature, and then we're biologically programmed to be in community. And you offered that to
Hmm.
people in New York, where it's the opposite of it. We live in buildings. Sometimes we don't even know who's in our hallway. Concrete jungle, and just this. Any business that's around that, or meetups, or any initiative, is always going to succeed if we have those two factors. So amazing. So now you both meet, you decide to start this company, and it's a wellness company, but the real your bread and butter is this CBD product that I'm using that's been helping me sleep. And I look at it in my Aura Ring. My Aura Ring numbers have been better ever since I've been using it. Um, what made you go right into there, and what does that field look like? Like, it's so adulterated. People don't even check for, like me and my
Yeah.
cousin could go downstairs and make a really crappy CBD product, and it'll have all these toxins, and I could put it out. What's going on in the
Yeah.
industry?
Well, also, there's kind of a two-pronged approach for me. I didn't mention as well that my mom had breast cancer back in 2014, and they caught it very early, and she had great doctors, and Western medicine really was very good for her. But then she decided that she would skip chemo and radiation and instead focus on battling her cancer through nutrition. And I thought that was a very cool move, but it scared the hell out of me because I knew she knew very little about what it meant to actually battle, be nutritious, much less battle cancer through nutrition. And so,
Hmm.
I had this background that I've mentioned. You know, health and nutrition was part of this reconnection with nature. And so I really took it upon myself to learn everything I could that could help her. And one of the things that kept coming up over and over was cannabinoids, and CBD in particular. And so I started buying CBD for her from Alfalfa's, which was one of the first grocery stores in America to carry CBD here in Boulder, Colorado. And she had this. When I first suggested it, she was really concerned, and she's like, "Oh, I've never had marijuana in my life. Are the police going to show up?" And there was this conversation that really was pretty hilarious, but I knew that was going to happen across the country. But anyways, I was buying CBD for her for a couple years, and I was sending it to her in Dubai at a lot of expense and not entirely legal. She was a professor there at the time, and and after 2 years, I really had zero affinity for any of the brands that were out there.
Mm.
This was back in 2015, 16, early 17. And I was asking questions. Where do you guys grow your hemp, and how do you extract it, and what's your purpose? Like, what's your company's mission? And I
Mhm.
wasn't getting great answers. There was very little transparency, mainly because I realized a lot of the companies just had no idea. They didn't know where their hemp was coming from. Their
Right.
only mission was to make money. And so, wanting to create a business that was more transparent, higher quality, um, you know, I, I started meeting with hemp farmers. My wife and daughter were away again for the summer, and I love driving country roads. I love talking to people, and I love meeting farmers, and so I started meeting hemp farmers all over Colorado, and these were the the highly recommended ones, working for the companies that were out there at the time.
Mm.
And by and large, they were all good people, and they were really good at growing, corn and alfalfa and soybeans, but they weren't hemp farmers. And they were what they were saying mostly was, here's my 10-acre hemp crop. It's surrounded by GMO corn, and I'm just giving it a shot. But I've been doing really well with it, and my costs are super low, and it's really efficient. And we use this huge thrasher, that the same one we use on the corn, to chop it all down. And
Mm.
I was just like totally turned off by all that. And the whole time I'm looking for somebody who is all about quality instead of quantity, and is going to charge me way more instead of charge me way less. So
Mhm.
that summer was really fun. And I kept hearing about this one farmer in Paonia, Colorado, who was all about the quality, not the quantity. He was a former marijuana grower who wanted to, get off the black market and have a farm outdoors. And he was doing things differently. He was growing on just 1 acre, and vortexing the already super pure Colorado mountain water, and playing reggae and binaural beats to his plants, and doing
Mm.
things biodynamically, much less organically. And I finally met him. It turned out that my sister, who lives in the same valley as him, met him or knew him, and we were introduced in September of 2017. He then told me about the best extraction facilities in Colorado, and I went and visited them a week later, and finally found the right one. And it was leaving that meeting with the extraction facility, I said to myself, man, I want to have a better product here. I want to have one that's much more transparent. It's going to use
Mhm.
much higher quality ingredients. It's going to the extraction is going to be way more expensive and time consuming. I'm going to need to tell this story, otherwise nobody's going to buy it. Um,
Mhm.
and it was then that before I hit the first stop sign leaving the extraction facility, I was on the phone to Adriaan. And again, Adriaan and I go back to New York. Adrian's had a storied career. He's a storyteller, and there's no one better as a storyteller, brand builder. Um, and so getting Adriaan on board was the absolute greatest thing that ever happened to me and to Ned. It would not be
Mhm.
where it is without Adriaan.
I love that. And Adrian, what you had mentioned about the brand as a whole is sort of why I wanted to speak to you both, is because it's not just net, it's how the consumer should look for brands and the standard we should hold companies to. Companies should always want like the distinct what I see is the big thing is you guys are proud to show it. A lot of companies kind of just don't show it, or at worst sort of like push it under the rug and go, no, we don't have that information, or no, we don't do that. But like
Yeah,
the the
yeah.
the level of transparency is totally parallel with like how proud you are as a company, and that should be everything from oat milks to chips to sugarless gummy worms. I don't care what it is, but like that, and that's sort of kind of what I'm trying to push from my side and hold companies accountable to do. So I love that you guys are doing that. It is
Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing
and we
it's
stuff.
love that you're
So
doing it.
yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. So one thing I wanted to mention is a lot of these products out there are not a full spectrum product that is hitting all of the. So we just know CBD, right? And we sort of know about the endocannabinoid system, but like, why is it important to have a full spectrum product? First of all, because there's a lot of people out there who go, no, I'm really happy with my hemp product, but it's just CBD.
yeah, it's CBD is just one of many cannabinoids, and we like to say it's kind of like the lead singer in the rock band. It gets all the fame and glory and
Mm.
dates the models, and but without the other cannabinoids, without the other folks in the band, without the drummer, the bassist, the CBD, the CBG rather, the CBC, CBN, you're really not getting the full effect. And
Mhm.
I think that's a really easy way to break it down for people. It's what's called the entourage effect, and I know you've mentioned this, Dr. G.
Mhm.
But the entourage effect is really when all those pieces, when all those cannabinoids come together, and the parts are greater than the whole.
Yeah, and what's
That's a,
what's super interesting um, about that entourage effect is CBD, which does get all the glory, it actually doesn't even bind with our cannabinoid receptors. So what it does is, in essence, it kind of opens the door for the other cannabinoids and terpenes and trichomes and all these other constituents to do their work. Um,
Mhm.
Not to say that CBD on its own isn't is terrible. It's just it doesn't go nearly as far as what a full spectrum product will offer.
Yeah. And that makes sense. That makes sense amongst everything. Like, how does nature offer it up best for us? Because it's a little bit more intelligent than the guys in the lab, even though the guys in the lab are really good. And I love that you guys
Ex-
offer the full spectrum.
exactly. I'm really glad you brought that up. It's why we do the things the way we do, which it is
Mhm.
why we encourage our farmer to grow organically and biodynamically, so that the plant will be in its most natural form. It's why we extract the way we do, because a cold ethanol extraction leaves it in its most. It's the way Mother Nature intended.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
it doesn't strip out the terpenes and the trichomes. It's why we like our farm smaller than 10 acres, because once you start using big threshers and machinery to harvest the plants, you start losing a lot of those trichomes again. Um, it's why we put the GPS coordinates of our farm on every bottle or every tube that the bottle comes in, because we want you to know where it comes from, and it's just crucial that we keep it as natural as possible, because, like you said, Mother Nature knows way better than we do, and
Yeah.
who are we to say, oh, let's strip this out and let's put this back in, and let's get super creative on this thing. It's like, well, it's already done. It's perfect. It's just the way it
Mhm.
is. So,
Mhm. Exactly. I mean, we have vitamin C, great, but then we have all this food with vitamin C, bioflavonoids, everything else in there that's really giving the signals on the body how to work as a whole. I try to keep it as whole as possible. I love that you guys show up like that. It's amazing stuff. I know that, and I wanted to mention this. You guys have this magnesium powder, right? That I have in my home. I'm ready to start using those too. Um, why are you guys excited about this powder in particular?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with the why, again, which is the fact that, I mean, magnesium is such an essential mineral in the human body. It really regulates over 300 essential functions in the body. And it's something that we used to get through green leafy veg and nuts and really through our diet. But due to environmental factors, you know, really soil depletion in agriculture and over farming and monoculture that just doesn't find its way into your food system the way it used to.
Mhm.
So there's that element, but also the way we're living. You can kind of think about the way our body uses magnesium is kind of like when you're driving a car uphill. Like if you're really stressed out, you're going to be using a lot more magnesium, and go figure, so many of us are living with so much more stress now. So that was really why we were so interested. Rhett had started learning about magnesium and magnesium optimization through this amazing sports therapist here in Boulder, and so that put us on the magnesium trail. And it's actually something we were developing for almost 2 years. And similar to hemp, we discovered that not all magnesium is created equal, and
Mhm.
that a typical like magnesium chloride, for instance, will not absorb nearly the way that chelated magnesium might. So that's where a lot of the time went, is into researching really like what are the magnesium forms that really will offer almost like a full spectrum experience for the human body. Um, yeah, it's a really amazing, what we call a super blend of three different forms of magnesium. We have a magnesium L-threonate, which is actually the only form of magnesium shown to cross the blood-brain barrier. So really good for cognitive function and short and long-term memory. Then we have a magnesium lactate gluconate, which is really good for blood and bone and muscle absorption. And then finally, a really amazing marine sourced magnesium citrate that is pulled out of the Irish Sea, sustainably harvested. And the Irish Sea is a really mineral rich sea, so it has over 72 trace minerals in there as well. And then we blended it with a couple of amazing aminos, L-theanine and GABA, and
Mhm.
that blend together is just really powerful, really good for stress response and just nourishing our body's need for magnesium that, according to the WHO, upwards of 80% of Americans are not getting enough of.
Yeah. It's pretty wild how much we're missing out on that magnesium. And the nice thing and the unique thing is that you don't always see packets of minerals or magnesium. I mean, maybe some electrolytes, but this is nice because not a lot of companies out there make those magnesium packets. So you can literally add it to your smoothie, or you can add it to your morning water, particularly because a lot of us are dehydrated, or bring it to work when you just got into it with your boss, you're super stressed. There you go, because you're right. It's like an upward battle. I think a lot of us, I think it's a combination with the magnesium, the food and the stress. we are extra stressed, not only just physically, not only mentally, but physically also, to just toxins and stuff we're exposed to, and then also the food supply. So awesome stuff, guys. So any plans, anything else we can look for the company, or anything that you two just any plans to reconnect to nature again, trips to the mountains? Adrian, are you moving to Budapest or something? What do we want to know?
I'm actually moving to the mountains in about a week and a half.
I had a feeling. See, something
it's-
came. I just intuition.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. But it's a house that my fiance and I have been. It's really like our dream, a little oasis in the mountains, and we've just been working on this huge renovation forever, and it's finally time to just melt into the mountain.
Nice.
So that's super exciting on my front. On the company front, so we're introducing a couple of different formats of Mellow, our magnesium products. So we have a lemon flavor coming very soon, along with bulk packaging, which will give our customers who like to have some Mellow at home and some Mellow on the go an option. And then, we're continuing to explore. We're getting pretty far down the line in R&D with another cannabinoid product, and that's the fun part. That's what's just so fun about doing what we do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love this season. It's big for me. I'll be outdoors a lot in the mountains here in Colorado, doing a lot of backpacking and fly fishing and mountain biking and climbing and all the good stuff. But mostly, I'm just excited about where we're at this point in our business. We've got an amazing team of people who really, truly want to be part of helping people reconnect with nature, really want to be a part of creating better products and being more transparent. And we're just continuously growing, not just in terms of revenue, but also in terms of knowledge and accountability and the way we do things. So that's just so exciting and fun for me, and Adrian as well, I know, and really the whole team. So just being a part of this, honestly, it's the greatest thing ever for me. I spent way too much of my career doing things that I wasn't passionate about, chasing money, and made a bit of it. Not much to write home about, but it didn't make the changes. And
Right.
and right now we're seeing the success with the business. Again, not only financially, but also just fulfillment wise, which is everything at this point in our career.
And man, and that's what it's about, right? Like living your soul purpose. And what I do see as a commonality between you two is you've, through different paths, awakened that soul purpose, embodied that soul purpose, and now it comes out to humanity through the medium of a company that is really doing right by us and is a standard for how companies should be run. And in every way is like, I'm so proud to support her on the show. So I'm so happy I got you both on. You took the time out of your busy schedules and developing and doing everything you do in nature too. But it was a pleasure having you both on.
Yeah, and it's our pleasure. And like Adrian said, one of our tenets, which we developed before we even began the business, was to show, not tell. But it's important to be able to tell as well. And so we appreciate you as a storyteller and for bringing our story to your audience. So grateful to you, Dr. G.
That's full alignment with all of us. All right, guys, thank you so much. And we'll be chatting soon again.